Okay, Carnage is probably one of the cooler of the secondary characters from a main character, right? He's obviously a takeoff from Venom, similar to like Shadow is a takeoff of Sonic, right? Another creation that has their own fan base. So I love the design, and I'm gonna go over the designs and kind of what makes Carnage a little bit more unique, specifically his head. So let's kind of pop into it. I'm thinking right here, I want to go over kind of general structure stuff, kind of while we're doing it this time. So if I'm thinking of his egg-like head, well, it's just a skull, really, human skull, right there, the top of it. It's gonna be regular, more or less round shape, like we kind of always do. It's gonna pull down, and it's gonna be pretty flat. Something that's really important to understand. That it's pretty flat right there. Gonna find a bit of a lip, and then we're gonna pull up. It opening like upward like that, I don't know why. I mean, obviously, it kind of reminds me of like a smile, but it's just creepy. Something to kind of take note. Um, his eye, along with Venom's eye, has some of the same stuff. So the way I like to establish his eye right there is the bottom is flat enough. You could add variation to it, but it has to be a base. And then the top over here is anything. It is wavy. You can draw S shapes, S curves. Try to make it a little bit different though. Don't make them too repetitive. It could be something like that. So if I was to take that over here on the right side, again, that rule would be base, right? Relatively flat. Top, you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Right? You could do that. Let's do another shape over here. Maybe a little bit simpler, right? As long as that base is more or less flat. Again, not always the case. Sometimes you can kind of reverse it, but I do kind of see them do that a lot with Carnage, right? With that whole thing, as long as that flat base kind of gives it a little bit some stable. Otherwise, it's a little bit too all over the place. Curve over here, around the corner. So we got our two eyes over here. Obviously, on this side, he's turned a little bit away, right? It's around the corner right there. Where? Around the corner, so you're not going to see as much of that eye as you normally would. Okay, teeth. Same rule as Venom. Finish. Vary up the size of the teeth. I mean, they're pretty big, but not in comparison to his head that wildly big. It's not like, I don't know. It's good. You're just going up and down, up and down, up and down. Right around there. Here's a big difference. Here's a really big difference with Carnage and Venom. You're not going to emphasize his tongue at all. Sometimes you can draw his tongue in there and be fine, but really you just don't even want to emphasize it whatsoever. When you focus on it, the thing is he would look too similar. We could draw like a curved line here, pulling up, and then kind of connecting this to the back of the jaw. But when you emphasize the tongue, it'll look too much like Venom, way too much. Venom's biggest feature is his tongue, right? And so we gotta take that away over here and play it down for that variety. And different artists do it different ways. You could do a curve right here for the skin. That's still pretty cool to do. If you like this sort of stuff, by the way, don't forget to subscribe. Say what's up in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Maybe some other characters you want to go over, and we can go over all of them. Curve for the right here on up lower lip, lower jaw. Pull that jaw right there. Right. Again, same thing with the tongue. You could throw the tongue in there a little bit, but you want to play it down. That's my suggestion. Play it down. I have seen some artists really play the tongue up a little bit, and I'm like, why? Why? We're not doing two Venoms here. That's just not. It's just ridiculous. Don't do that. Another thing with Carnage is he's got like this wig. Some designs have this kind of especially with the darkness. It's kind of like the dark on the red, right? You have this sort of drippiness to him coming around the edges. So let me talk really fast about that drippiness, and this should help out a lot because he's more chaotic than Venom. He's kind of like coming apart at the seams, so he'll have this like goop all over the place sometimes. And so you want to think of the goop a little bit like this. So we're gonna go over here. So I like to think about it like, I don't know, like we got our cheese stick over here, right? We got our cheese stick, and then you grab your cheese stick, you pull it apart, right? Let's say you're pulling it apart. Let's say now it's over here. So the mass is gonna stay on the left and the right. The mass is gonna stay. But since you're stretching it, there's going to be less of it in the middle. Right there. It's going to be less of it. It's going to be smaller. Right here, right here. Hopefully that's obvious as you pull it out. And the more you pull it out, right, let's pull it out over here. The more you pull it out, it's going to, think about when you pull gum apart, right? It's going to stretch thinner right there. That stuff's going to, like, before it breaks, going to be real thin. But it's gonna hold that mass on the left and the right over here. So it's getting really thin. There's the points where it'll like shred, right? So maybe you kind of pull it, not totally, but you pull it like this, and maybe you got some of it coming apart over here in the center, right? Where you're pulling it apart, it's starting to like have these negative spaces in here. Again, I like to think of like string cheese, stuff like that. Just really focus on that, and that's going to be a lot of the stuff that's similar here. So when, let's just say this thing goes around the corner here, it's going to have a little bit of a bulk here, a little bit more bulk at the drop, at those drop points, and it's going to get thinner along that other portion, right? Just to kind of focus on. You can kind of put those all over the place. You can also, I would say, darkening out the outside area of his eye, maybe around this area. You can. I think the power of these characters is that you can pretty much do anything you want with them. That there's not set like there's a couple of small parameters, but outside of that, you can kind of go wild with. That the whatever it is that you want them to be exactly. You can make these characters in your own vision like quite easily. So I'm thickening out this area over here. A lot of times I'll thicken out this whole entire area, like make it very dark toward the center. Right? You could do that. You don't have to do that, but you can do that. And some areas, they kind of go wild. Some areas do not. There you go. Again, and then the rest of this stuff is more just normal drawing, right? Deep part of the mouth over here, it's going to be darker. With him and Venom, you're pretty much balancing out how much dark you want in there, because you want to be able to see the character. So a lot of it's going to be like balancing out, like, okay, how much value, how much shade should the tongue have in here, right? I want to see it. I want to be able to see it. I want the viewer to see it, right? So it's a lot of that balancing, stuff. There we go. There we go. I'm just like throwing in this sort of stuff here. Again, Let's look at this. I want to give him information right here in the jaw. You know, again, you can kind of fill in some of this stuff. Like, it really is just whatever it is that you want it to be, right? Like, obviously, him being red is, I would say, a big deal. I'm not really working with color right here. I could use that marker right there to color him in, but am I? Nah, not this one. Not this one. Or should I? Let me see. Let me experiment with that while we're doing this on camera. I was going to say, experimenting with just kind of, there you go, color points. Since it's funny, him in particular, it's just literally it's like an exercise in, it's like an exercise in like the technicality of like shading and stuff like that. It doesn't feel like you're just drawing a character. It feels like you really have to hone in and focus in on like, oh, okay, like how much is too dark. So with Venom, one of the biggest things with Venom, for example, is he has a black suit, right? So you're just finding shine everywhere, and you're kind of toying with it in that sense, right? With Carnage, it's pretty close. Like he's got so much goop going around. I'm just gonna go in here, putting it down just a bit, see how it works. So you're watching me experiment live on camera here. Well, I'm not live, but you're watching me. If I left this in, you're watching me do stuff. There we go. On here. So you kind of color portion of it right there. You can always leave some of it exposed to kind of show that, you know, maybe there's a highlight coming from this side only, or from all sides. There we go. And I was going to say, you want to experiment a lot with drawing and art and start adding in color right there, and you don't want to be afraid of it. A good way to not be afraid of it is to kind of go in, jump around, play around with it, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of mistakes, but the more you do that, the less afraid you'll be, and that's going to be big in the long run. Because a lot of people don't get to places they want to be because they you know, needed that. They never push forward on that. So you don't really want to be like that. You want to be, hey, you know, you did push this, you did experiment with it, you did do what you needed to do, and then at some point, you know, you increase your how good you are at something because you took these risks. The people that got the best in my art class were people that were absolutely the people that experimented the most. And so that's just something to kind of keep in mind right there. Huh. I don't know if I like this, but it's just something. But yeah, I was gonna say keep those rules handy. What I was saying, absolutely keep the idea of like you know, filling these certain areas out, and then you'll do pretty well. All right, let me see. Throw in a couple of lines over here along the corner. You really want to put stuff down before you start removing it. Alrighty. Kind of toying with it right as we put it down. You're like, alright, I could probably do some more here. Pulling a couple of lines out there. And yeah. Again, pulling these small dark lines over here in areas that we're trying to match a little bit more. And you can always add a couple of like different stuff, like grab the colored pencil over here, kind of fill in some of these gaps, right? It's going to give it a little bit more kind of flavor a little bit. You can also grab like a darker colored pencil too. I do that a lot, by the way. You can grab a darker colored pencil, and with your darker colored pencil, you can start like throwing a little bit of value over here where there would be a little bit of value. So along the edges, right? Along the corners around here, you're merging. You're merging different different stuff that's kind of going on to kind of make it transition a little bit better. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Hopefully that was good, and we'll talk later. Okay, so that was amazing. You finished this lesson, but keep it going. Keep the art practice going by clicking this video right here. It's going to be within the same theme, and you want to keep it rolling to get better and better and better and get that art flow going. So click right here.